In this episode, we will explore how to describe the conditions under which the learning experience are designed to be completed. First, we must recognize that there are various conditions under which these learning experiences can be completed. Some of the most important conditions involve the social interactions between learners during the learning experience. It is important that learners feel that the learning environment is a safe place to take risks, fail, share, and discuss difficult topics. Adult learners find more informal learning environments where they have influence over conditions and resources more comfortable as well. Other factors that can help you determine what conditions should be in a learning environment will come from the types of learners you are designing for and the purposes of your course. Once you have identified the conditions, you will need to plan how you will develop those conditions in the learning environment in a timely manner. Other more common conditions relate to the resources that can be accessed and employed by the learner completing the experiences. For example, guiding documents, worksheets, books, computers, the internet, or other learners and/or experts to collaborate with. The next thing you need to do is to identify the resources that your learner will need to have access to and/or manipulate to complete each event designed in the learning experience. Seek out as many of these resources that already exist from reliable sources. Develop those resources that do not already exist, either from scratch or by modifying other suitable resources. If you are using resources that were created by someone else, you will need their permission to use those resources. Some creators of resources give permission through Creative Commons licensing, which makes this much easier to do. Once you have your resources, you will then need to plan how you make the resources that you have developed available to your learners. And finally, you will need to prepare a document that will guide both learners and instructors about how to complete the learning experiences as you've designed them. This document should include the following elements. First, the title of the learning experience. Second, information required to prepare the learners to best complete the experience. This should include the following three things: a brief explanation of why it is important for the learners to give their best efforts to complete the experience, the list of principles the learning experience is designed for, and a brief explanation of previously learned principles that this experience will build on. Then third, the next element you need to include in your guide is the information to be provided to the learners about the principles being learned with examples. Fourth, then you need to include a list of resources the learner will need to access and/or manipulate to complete the learning experience. 5. You then need to include directions on how to experiment with employing the principles in the most valuable ways. This should include how to access the appropriate environment and conditions. And 6, you also need to include directions on how the learners will receive feedback about their learning experience. 7. You then need to include the reflection questions for your learners to consider when reflecting on their learning experiences. And finally, you need to include any other information that may enhance the learning experience. Now review the learning experiences of this module and consider what the conditions and resources for completing them are. One final check that you should do at this point is to review the conditions and resources of your learning environment and consider if they are appropriate and make sense to you and the learners. In summary, the 4 principles that you should remember and be able to employ from this presentation are: 1. The conditions in a learning environment will have a significant effect on the learning experiences taking place in that environment. 2. Resources can be any artifact that can be created or adapted to be suitable to support the learning experiences. 3. If you are using resources that were created by someone else, you will need their permission to use those resources. Some creators of resources give permission through Creative Commons licensing, which makes this much easier to do. And finally, 2 important resources that should be included in every learning experience is a document that guides learners and instructors through the learning events of the experience, and the list of principles that the learning experience is based on.